in a quiet corner of the United States, far from the marble halls of the Vatican, something extraordinary happened. It didn't make international headlines at the time. No camera crews rushed to the scene. But years later, this hidden moment of grace would rise to global significance, recognized by the Holy See as a true miracle and marked forever as the first miraculous act officially acknowledged under the papacy of Pope Leo. This is the story of the Rhode Island miracle. Our story begins not in a grand cathedral, but in the now closed Memorial Hospital in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. It was the year 2007. Doctors and nurses were rushing through hallways, responding to a case that quickly turned critical. A young woman, pregnant and in distress, was brought in for an emergency delivery. Her unborn baby's heartbeat had suddenly dropped, an alarming sign that something was going terribly wrong. Within minutes, medical staff made the decision to perform a C-section to try and save the child. The baby's name was Tyquan Hall. He was born extremely premature, fragile, tiny, and completely unresponsive. Over the next hour, a full team of doctors and nurses worked to revive him. They tried everything: oxygen, medication, chest compressions. But despite every effort, Tyquan showed no signs of life. His pulse had vanished. His body remained still. The team was preparing for the worst. Nurses began to ready the paperwork. The family, gathered nearby, was bracing for heartbreak. The hospital chaplain was quietly informed. And then something unexpected happened. One of the attending physicians, a deeply faithful Catholic, found himself overwhelmed by the weight of the moment. Out of instinct more than logic, he turned to prayer. Not just any prayer, but one directed to a priest he had long admired. Father Salvador Valera, a Spanish priest from the 19th century. Father Valera had a reputation for holiness in his homeland, but was largely unknown in the United States. He had never been to Rhode Island, never even visited America. Yet in that moment, the doctor believed that this priest, long gone from this world, might somehow still intercede. With his hands folded and voice trembling, he whispered a simple plea. "Father Valera, if you can hear me, please ask God to save this child." Seconds passed. Then, something happened. A nurse screamed. The machines beeped. Tyquan's heart had started beating. At first, no one could believe it. After more than an hour of failed attempts to bring him back, Tyquan Hall's tiny chest began to rise and fall. His pulse had returned. Monitors lit up again, showing the unmistakable rhythms of life. Doctors froze in place, blinking at the screens. Nurses burst into tears, and the doctor who had prayed to Father Valera fell silent, stunned by what had just happened. This wasn't a delayed response or a slight movement mistaken for life. Tyquan had been clinically unresponsive, with no signs of heartbeat or breathing for a length of time that would normally guarantee severe brain damage, if not death. And yet, he was back. The team rushed into action again, but this time with purpose. They began stabilizing the newborn, supporting his breathing, checking reflexes. Family members, once preparing for grief, were now overwhelmed with cautious joy. In the days that followed, what began as a spark of life turned into a full recovery. Miraculously, Tyquan showed no signs of neurological damage. Doctors monitored his brain activity, reflex responses, and early developmental signs. Nothing was abnormal. He didn't require ongoing life support. He began to feed. He began to respond. Medical records documented what had happened in meticulous detail. The timing of the C-section, the failed resuscitation, the moment of the prayer, and the unexplainable return of cardiac and respiratory activity. It wasn't just the timing that stood out, it was the fact that the prayer preceded the recovery by mere seconds. and that the child went on to grow and develop without any of the lasting damage doctors would have expected. The hospital eventually discharged Taekwon, and he went on to live a normal, healthy life. As the years passed, his story faded into quiet memory, known only to family, the original medical team, and a few close to the priest whose name had been called in that desperate hour. But heaven, as it turns out, had not forgotten. It would take more than a decade for the Church to begin looking into the case. In 2023, after a renewed push in Father Salvador Valera's cause for sainthood, reports of the 2007 event in Rhode Island reached the Vatican's dicastery for the causes of saints. Under the strict rules of the Catholic Church, miracles aren't accepted lightly. Each case undergoes a rigorous and multi-step investigation, which includes a full medical review by an independent panel of doctors, many of whom are non-religious or not Catholic, a theological review to determine if the prayer and intercession were clear, a moral review to ensure there was no fraud, exaggeration, or natural explanation. In Taekwon's case, the records were solid. The event had occurred in a hospital setting with proper documentation. Several doctors and nurses were willing to testify. And perhaps most compellingly, the miracle had happened in direct connection to a specific intercessory prayer, something the Church looks for when evaluating whether divine intervention may have occurred. The Vatican concluded its investigation in 2025 and reached a dramatic conclusion. There was no medical explanation. There was clear and immediate intercessory prayer. There was a lasting and complete healing. And so, the case was brought before Pope Leo. On June 20th, 2025, Pope Leo signed a decree that did two major things. First, it recognized 174 new martyrs, many of whom died for their faith in Nazi camps or during political persecution. But tucked inside that same decree was something that made quiet history. The official recognition of the Rhode Island miracle, the first of its kind linked to Pope Leo's papacy, and the first miracle ever recognized by the Vatican as having taken place in the smaller state. The declaration read, "A miraculous healing attributed to the intercession of the servant of God, Father Salvador Valera, has been confirmed as authentic and without scientific explanation. The Holy Father has recognized this as a true miracle." With that signature, Father Valera was one step closer to sainthood, and Taekwon Hall's story was sealed into church history. The priest at the heart of this miracle, Father Salvador Valera, was born in 1816 in Spain. Known for his deep holiness, pastoral care, and love for the poor, he spent most of his ministry quietly serving local communities. Is it just me, or does he look a bit like Pope Leo? He was not a famous preacher or theologian. He didn't write books or travel the world. And he certainly never visited the United States. Yet somehow, across time and distance, his name came to the lips of a doctor halfway across the world in a hospital crisis no one could have planned. That moment of prayer, spoken in trust, became the link between heaven and earth. And now, thanks to the miracle in Rhode Island, Father Valera has been officially recognized as blessed on his way toward eventual sainthood. In a world where headlines are often filled with division, fear, and doubt, the story of Taekwon Hall offers something radically different: hope. It's not just a story about medicine or survival. It's a reminder of something deeper, something that many in the modern world have forgotten. That prayer still matters, that miracles still happen, and that God is still present, even in the quietest corners of our lives. What happened in a small Rhode Island hospital room in 2007 was not part of a global movement. There were no crowds, no cameras, no grand announcements. It was just a doctor, a dying child, and a prayer whispered in desperation to a long-forgotten priest. But that prayer shook heaven. And now, years later, the Church has confirmed what many already believed. This was not chance. This was grace. For Pope Leo, this miracle holds special meaning. As the first American pope, his election marked a new chapter in the history of the Church. And this miracle, recognized just months into his papacy, occurred not in Rome, but in the country of his birth. It is a sign of divine timing. A miracle that happened quietly years ago, now brought into the light at the beginning of a new pontificate. Many believe this is more than just a medical marvel. It is a signal, a message, that in this new era, God is working not only through great events and powerful institutions, but through the faith of ordinary people in the most unexpected places, and that perhaps through Pope Leo, the Church will continue to rediscover the power of silence, of tradition, and of prayerful trust. The recognition of the Rhode Island miracle sent ripples across the global Catholic community. In Spain, the home of Father Valera, celebrations broke out in parishes that had been quietly praying for years for his canonization. Pilgrims gathered to thank God for the miracle and to honor the priest who once walked their streets and who now, it seems, continues to walk with them from heaven. In the United States, many Catholics were stunned. Rhode Island, the smallest state in the country, had become the setting of one of the most talked about miracles in recent church history. And not just any miracle, but one officially recognized by the Vatican as real and unexplainable. In Rhode Island itself, some wept with joy. Others simply knelt in gratitude. The cathedral in Providence rang its bells in celebration. And those who once worked at Memorial Hospital, now closed, looked back on that night in 2007 with awe, realizing they had witnessed something far bigger than they could have imagined. As for Taekwon, now a healthy young man, his very life has become a testimony. Every breath he takes, every step he walks, reminds the world of what happened. Not everyone believes in miracles, but no one can deny his story. This miracle brings us to a bigger question, one that echoes through the hearts of millions. Do miracles still happen? The Catholic Church answers with careful, cautious discernment. It doesn't declare miracles lightly. Years of study, testimony, and evidence must be examined before any decision is made. And yet, when all other explanations fall away, when science has no answer, and when lives are changed in ways that defy logic, the Church dares to say what the world too often forgets. Yes, miracles are real, and they still happen. But they don't always happen in bright lights or on center stage. Sometimes they happen in hidden places, in hospital rooms, in whispered prayers, in hearts that refuse to give up hope. This is why stories like Taekwon's matter, because they invite us to look again, to believe again, and to remember that heaven is not so far away. So now we turn to you. What do you think about this miracle? Do you believe it really happened? Have you or someone you know ever experienced something that felt divine, unexplainable, real? Whether you're Catholic, Christian, or simply curious, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. This isn't just a story from Rhode Island. It's a reminder for all of us that life is fragile, that prayer is powerful, and that grace is never far. If this story moved you, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing for more uplifting and faith-filled content. We try to bring light to the stories that matter, stories that remind us that even in the darkest hours, God still acts. Thank you for watching. May the Lord bless you. May He bless Taekwon and his family. And may He continue to work miracles seen and unseen in every part of the world. For with God, nothing shall be impossible. Luke 1:37.